Hello, everybody. Welcome to Insights, the series on Know Today and Lead Tomorrow. Here we invite business leaders to talk about their experiences so that we can know our today a little better and manage our tomorrow even in a better manner. So today we have Bhavya with us, who shall talk about a lot on people and change. And people, what we can say, is the crux of everything we do. And leaders who were specializing in people, that is the entire life cycle, as to have the right people in the right place, managing them, growing them, retaining them, and building the next level in the organization, have a lot to offer back to the organization. With a rich experience in FMCG, retail, and technology, Bhavya is one of the two business leaders in this space. So, welcome, Bhavya.
Thank you. Thanks, Sudeshna. Totally my pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Okay, so jumping right into our discussion today. So, you've worked through various industries in this function, and how have you seen the function evolve over time? How do you see HR has evolved over time with the workforce and the type of workforce around you in the organization?
I think many things have changed over a period of time, right from the beginning as this function started from being an administrative function to today being a far more center of plate strategic function. I think that itself, has been a big change. A lot of integration of technology over a period of time, to put away all the non-value added tasks to technology and hence elevating the role of the function to becoming a far more business partnering and strategic function. I think that's been a big change as well. Then I think, again, integration and usage of a lot of data and insights. That has been a big change also over a period of time, I
Mm-hmm.
believe. And lastly, I believe, earlier on, devising policies, processes, and the way we do things at a mass scale level to today's current way of personalization and sometimes hyper personalization. I think that's another change that I've seen over a period of time. So those would be a few that come to mind immediately.
So, initially, as you said, it was more invisible, thankless. These were the words which we associated with the kind of work which HR always did. They always did a lot of stuff, but it was always HR and business. So, I see, the way it should be weaved. And today, you see that strategic involvement has made it it is a part of business, right?
Yes, absolutely. I think you said it absolutely correctly. I think it's far more integrated into everything that business wants to do. It is not just
Mm-hmm.
about executing operational tasks at the back end, which I think was the starting point of saying that, okay, somebody needs to run payroll, somebody just needs to do interviewing, get candidates. I think it's
Mm-hmm.
moved a lot ahead from there, right? And the proverbial seat on the table. I think, this is the best time to be in the function. I think it exactly has that seat on the table and a very loud and important voice in the boardroom. So I think that that evolution has been all positive in my view.
And how much has COVID, post COVID, do you see another significant change in the whole thing, the way it is being viewed?
I would say some of the areas of focus may have changed, but for organizations which have been mature, right? I would say
Yeah.
that pre and post COVID, a lot of values and principles have remained the same, right? Like if I talk about my current organization, Lenovo, right? Lenovo has
Mhm.
always been a very flexible working organization, right? Now, during COVID, I think a lot more organizations were forced to become
To
flexible. You
become
had
flexible.
to ensure,
Mhm.
that people were working in a certain way. But I think the very principles or values, that the organization holds dear, uh, haven't fundamentally changed in that ways of working, learning about new technology, integrating new technology, and opening our eyes to different, ways of looking at the same kind of work. That, yes,
Mhm.
has changed. The definition of work itself, that it needs to be done in office or can it be done from anywhere, some of those things have changed. Also, I believe maybe the definition of leadership itself. I think pre-COVID, a lot of times when we spoke about leaders, right? across many organizations, right? We always said that leaders know more, they're more senior, more experienced, and in situations they would have a point of view to offer
Sure.
from their experience, knowledge, whatever it might be. I think COVID was a very testing time, even for leaders, because they put you in a situation that said that you might not be the most informed person in the room. In fact, nobody knows. I
Mm-hmm.
think pretty much all businesses were in a state of saying, okay, now what do we do? And even if you looked at the leader, not like they had a clear view,
With
because
clear
everybody was
view.
experiencing it for the first time. And,
Mm-hmm.
acknowledging and accepting a lot of humility in leadership also became center stage, I think, at that time, to say that,
Yeah.
look, all of us don't know,
Don't
but we are in
know.
it together and we will find a
Yeah.
way.
Hmm.
And, that way also will evolve over a period of time. So
Yes.
I think to that extent, there were some changes in ways of working.
I completely agree with you, and just the way you spoke about the integration in times, like the HR is no longer like it is business itself. So from the other point of view, how do you see leadership looking at things like which were HR prerogative earlier, like a capability building or a talent management? That part of it, which was completely a HR area, has now become very important because business needs it so crucially. So how do you think leaders look at capability building, or that kind, those kind of things?
Sure. So, Sudeshna, specifically talking about capability building, right? Let's take an illustration. I think, across industries, across companies today, right? I think pretty much any organization you speak to, one word is going to be common, which will be transformation. Everybody will say in one way or another that they are transforming something or the other, right? Now, if you just reflect on it, what does it mean? It means that something is changing about either how you were doing business, what are you doing, some part of your business is changing. Now every time there is a change, it automatically implies that there is a different set of capabilities that will be required. And I think that
Yes.
itself brings capability to the center of every discussion, to say that everything that you knew in the past may or may not
Mm-hmm.
be applicable in the future. And hence building the right set of capabilities. When you're constantly transforming as organizations, our environment has become so volatile, right? That,
Correct.
like I said, transformation is the most used and abused word in every organization. And in that context, I think there is no choice but for us to focus on capability building across, cohorts of people, across layers, however you might define it.
So you're saying, like, the leaders, the top leaders, in their mind, in terms of, they kind of give a lot of importance these days as to the capability, because that's how the growth, as you say, the transformation is helping them to grow or stay in business. Now that has become very, very the crux of it. And in that, do you think in the org visioning, or in their top priorities, do you see these featuring now?
Oh, absolutely. Like I said, every single time you talk about something changing in the business, which is very common nowadays as conversations, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Capability does take center stage there. And I think, leaders have also started paying much more attention to saying that, okay, here are all these things that we want to do from a business perspective. But how will it actually happen? I mean, are my people ready to be able to execute all these things? Strategic intent and vision is great, but at the end of the day, unless and until the last person, in your
Mm-hmm.
value chain is able to execute some of what you are visioning, it's never
Mm-hmm.
going to fructify. So I think, there is a realization on saying that unless I shift the needle on building capabilities that I will need for the future, there is no way that my vision or strategic intent will come to life. And hence, building that capability, whether it's in the functional domain or from a leadership perspective, saying that what kind of an organization do I want to be,
Mm-hmm.
unless we focus on that and leaders talk about it, it's not going to be a reality. And I think, which is why, if you look at many of the plans that leaders themselves, I mean, business leaders themselves have, capability will find, as being one of the pillars that in their plans themselves. It's not about it being an HR plan, whether it's annual
Mm.
plan or 3-year plan. Even, in the CEO's plan, capability will play a huge role. And
Sure.
I can give you an example. If I speak about
Yeah.
Lenovo
Yeah.
itself, right?
Mm-hmm.
My current organization. So Lenovo is obviously the world's largest PC organization and is very well known in that area. Lenovo, over the last few years, is transforming itself to becoming an end-to-end technology organization. So not just products, but also services and solutions, right? And if you think a little about it, that basically means that the fundamental capabilities required in the organization are very different. So unless and until as an organization we invest in that, and yes, you can do a lot by getting people in who have expertise in that area, but at the same time that will always be limited. You do have to focus on the current set of people that you have and building their capability systematically. So we have like a very extensive program which is called ASAP, basically focusing on developing this solution selling mindset capabilities in people, and a hyper personalized program where each person has their own learning journey. Depending on their current state of knowledge, they get programs that they have to complete, and then they get certified at various stages. So that's what it is, and I think it's totally a part of business strategy itself at today's time.
Absolutely, getting it completely, because as you said that this can go on only when people do the right things and the way leaders look at. We always talk about these days of organization culture, and pretty much what leaders do becomes the culture. So in that space, how do you see that culture evolving in set organizations or your other experiences where where leaders have done the right thing or have not done the right thing to make the culture evolve?
I think you said it absolutely correctly, Suresh. Culture is something that is leader-led, right? It is not about defining a set of cultural, pillars or defining values. It boils down to saying that how are each of those values or the cultural pillars or the tenets that you have actually getting translated into day-to-day decisions. For an example, so many organizations would say that respecting, employees or trusting employees is a very integral part of our culture. But people who work for you, are they in fact experiencing that? Every single time and interactions that they have. And I think where the rubber hits the road is where you find the truth, right? Which is that it's not about the posters that you put in office or trainings that you make people do every year. It is about the interactions that people have with each other. Do they truly feel respected, if that is one of the values that you want to talk about? Or let's look at it differently. Say innovation. That's another thing. In this time of transformation, most organizations speak about innovation as being a core value. Now, are you really encouraging innovation? Or every time somebody is trying to innovate and they fail, are you pulling that person down? Or the person feels that, oh my God, I failed. Let me not do it. Let me take the safe route. Then you're not building a culture of innovation. If you want to truly build a culture of innovation, then there needs to be that scope to be able to fail, because you will do 50 things out of which maybe only 5 will work. The rest 45 will not work. But that space for people to be able to think, experiment, and then be bold enough to do it needs to be there. So my view on culture is that while we can have great definitions, very fancy words and great posters and artwork, but at the end of the day, if it is not translated into day-to-day decision-making and experience that employees have, there is no way that it's going to be a reality.
Absolutely, it doesn't stick. And as you said, and we are seeing these behavior changes, which is like sometimes older organizations may have worked in that command and control kind of an environment, and they are shifting to something which is kind of more collaborative, or innovation is the way we will work in future. So these are not easy things where you have to fine tune the skill, attitude, behavior. A lot of things have to change. And when you look at it, we feel, hey, it's a long-term thing. But do you think leaders are willing to invest that time to make it a long-term change, or nowadays also quick fixes are what we look for?
Yeah, my view, frankly, Sudeshna, on that is a little different. Every time we classify something as long-term, what is long-term? Long-term is just a big addition of small short terms. That's what it is. So you can't say that something is long-term and then we're going to look at it after 3 years. Long-term basically means that you have to start now. right? If you have to run for 1 kilometer, you have to start with 100 meters. You have to start somewhere. It's not going to suddenly land in the long term with a reality. So that's firstly a fallacy, which is to say that, something is in the long term, so let's keep it aside. I don't believe in that. Long term means that you have to start now, because building the long term starts right now. The other thing is that I do believe that organizations that want to be sustainable, right, who want to stay in the business for a long period of time, who know that they want to build themselves as organizations that are going to stand the test of time. I think that leaders there do invest in culture and do consider it to be very important, because as soon as you're in a leadership position and you're talking about values, see, it's a given now that people talk about values, people talk about culture, right? But at the same time, I think we're living right now in a society where everybody has the freedom and ability to immediately judge you and also talk about it, right? You're living in the world of social media where immediately people call out if there's a disconnect between what you're saying and what you're doing. So at the same time, I think all leaders have become very careful about saying that, okay, if I'm talking about this, I better walk the talk on it, right? If I'm saying that I believe in diversity and inclusion, am I in fact living that? When I am selecting my own team members, am I looking at diversity as a criteria? When I am behaving in the boardroom or talking to somebody, am I in fact, displaying inclusive behaviors?
Inclusive.
I think, that's a very good check. And I actually find it very positive that, there is a way to hold yourself accountable, and you can't just say something and get away with it. I think people will constantly come back to you and question and say, but you said this. So I do believe that, like I said, sustainable organizations that want to be in the business for a long term do focus on it. And secondly, I think every second of the day as a leader, when you're performing, when you're talking, you're constantly being judged and scrutinized. So it's very important for you to walk the talk, because if you don't, there is always a check and balance on that.
Absolutely. And in terms of, the if we are talking about, the roles in HR itself, we see the HRBP role coming up, the partnering role coming up as a very important strategic role. So what's your view on that particular role?
No, absolutely. I think the HR business partner is the role that brings everything together for the business teams, right? I mean, you have obviously COEs, which are very, very critical. All the work that they do is very important. But at the end of the day, the person that brings together all of that work that the Center of Excellences do in a way that makes sense to business, not in an academic theoretical process way, but in a way that can be executed. What do I do about it, and how is it going to impact me in my day-to-day business? That is the role of the HR business partner. And I think, like you exactly said, it's a very, very critical role. It's also very strategic to business, because while one hand the role is to get everything together from an HR perspective and bring it to the business, the other role also is that this is the role that also understands business the best, to say that, what is it that my business needs, and all these things that we are doing, are they truly relevant? Or is there something else that I need to bring to the business from a people and talent perspective that will help us grow further? So I think, it is that role which is the critical interface between all the other HR functions as well as the business teams. And I think that is where it adds the best strategic value.
Okay. So I know it. Just the way you're talking about integration, being a HR leader is an integral part of Bhavya, but what makes Bhavya tick? What has been your aha moment, or your learning, which has kind of changed the way in which you do things?
I think that's a very good question. And I would say that, over a period of time, the learning which has really impacted me is that, while talent is very important, innate talent of people, but I believe, hard work and resilience are equally important. And I think that is something that, I learned over a period of time. I think when we come out of these schools and the way we study in India, right, there's a lot of focus on academics and IQ and, just the level of talent and intelligence that people have. But I think working through my career, I've realized that hard work and resilience are as important, if not more.
True, absolutely. And like when you are looking at the workforce and that has changed over time. We are now having those challenges of multi-generational workforce within an organization. What kind of challenges do you see, or what kind of opportunities do you see?
You know, there are lots of forms of diversity in the workforce, right? Multi-generational is just one type of it. I think today when we talk
Yes.
about diversity, it could be generations. Gender, of course, is something that is talked about a lot.
Not.
It could be regional, it could be functional, the kind of skill sets that you're bringing in. I think the core of addressing any of this is about how inclusive you truly are as an organization, right? And whether you're looking at people as different people or not. Now, whether they are from different generations, different genders, different backgrounds, educational, qualifications, etc. Just that ability to be able to treat a person as they want to be treated, not as how you want to be
How
treated.
you want to be.
I think that's the key, to say that, are you truly inclusive in thought, to appreciate and value and encourage different kinds of ideas and thought processes in your organization? See, any organization will ultimately come to a decision which may or may not be in line with each and every type of person that's present in your company. But I think people feel valued as long as they have a voice, as long as they are allowed to be authentic, with respect to how they are. And I think that's the kind of organization that we need to create.
Absolutely. So we are all, meaning with our innovative culture. So we are all talking about being always future ready. And in context of that, what would you think leadership nowadays, meaning for being future ready, must have?
I think I touched upon a couple of things, but let me try to bring it together. I think leadership in today's time, it's very, very important, Sudeshna, to be humble as a leader. I think gone are the days of the superhero leaders, where people also thought and you also assumed that as a leader, you know more. I think this is not that time. It is time to say that, yes, you might be the leader in the room, but firstly, you may not have the best opinion. You may not be most knowledgeable, but are you humble enough to accept that and look at whoever's point of views are the best and take that forward? And are you willing to learn? Right. And I think humility is a very, very important trait in a leader in today's time. I really do believe that. And I think the other thing which is very important is authenticity. You can have whatever leadership style, whatever preferences, it doesn't really matter. I think people have stopped judging some of that, right? There used to be conventional leaders that we used to look at who, these alpha male definition kind of leaders, right? But I think over a period of time, people have become very accepting of different leadership styles. However, whatever is your leadership style, are you aware of it and are you authentic? That is something that people expect, and I think is very important for leaders. So if I had to just call out two things, I would say humility and authenticity.
That can kind of lead you to the next. And what advice would you have to your fellow HR or business leaders, now let us call them, who need to kind of who is in a place we feel is can knit the whole organization together? I don't think anybody is in a better place to have that pragmatic view of the whole business. And what kind of an advice would you like to give them to kind of make the leaders future ready or the organization future ready?
So from an HR perspective, my advice would be two things, right? The first one is that try and spend time on understanding the business itself, right? You are not existing as a function in itself. If you're not in a consulting organization, it's not the business of HR, right? There is a core business that your organization is doing. And as an HR person, I think it's extremely important to understand the nuts and bolts of the business. So that's the first thing that's very critical. I think the other thing which is very important is keeping your ears and eyes open and listening, with a completely non-judgmental perspective, right? Just listening to what are people saying, how are they reacting to some of the things that you're doing. Because if you look at things or policies, processes, practices across organizations, right, over a period of time, as this function has matured, right, a lot of things are similar across organizations, but it is about listening to how those things are working for your organization, whether or not people are really appreciating it or they need something different. So I think just listening is very important. You can have various tools. I mean, right now we have AI enabled tools. You can do one-on-ones, you can do roundtables. There are 1,000 ways to listen, right? But are you really listening to what people and leaders are saying about everything that you're doing and things that are happening? So if I had to just call out two pieces of advice for HR people, I would say focus and understand the business much more and keep listening to what people are saying.
Okay, Bhavya. Like today, like it was like in this whole conversation with you, what came across or what would be my insights to take out is I see a leader with humility. I think what you like, you say walk the talk, and I think you do that a lot. Meaning, in the sense, everything you spoke of, I think a lot of humility, which makes the leader want to listen and and listen and take those inputs and do things which will make the organization more resilient and transform and become future ready. I think meaning the things which you said are not kind of rocket science, but I think which we kind of tend to keep it under the carpet or not focus on as the main things. So thank you for that. You would like to add anything? You would like to say anything specific?
No, I think, I had a great time chatting with you, Sudeshna. And, I think it was a very nice, open conversation. So thank you for having me. And in summary, I agree with you. I think, in the age that we are, right, while there are lots of concepts, and I think they are very important, right? I'm not taking away from all the managerial concepts that we've learned. They're very important. But I think as different domain experts, right, or as leaders, we have to find ways to make them relevant to the business, right? I think that is the core task. And I believe for that, right, while at the back end, when you're preparing something, there could be a lot of complexity. You can go through all kinds of complexities, jargons, fancy ways of saying something. But when you have to present to the employees, to the larger audience, it has to be as simple as possible. We're in the time of technology where, I mean, if you look at your phone, the apps that you will use the most will be the ones which are easiest and most
Yes,
intuitive to
most
use. As soon as there are 20 steps to something with difficult words and all, you'll say, I don't want to do this. Yeah, can somebody help me? Can I get some help? So I think it's a very important trait to be able to translate however complex your thoughts are into a simple narrative that people would want to understand and follow and be able to do in their lives. So I think that's very important.
Yeah, I think thank you. And I think for an HR leader, you would be like, you seem to be somebody who I would like to go and talk to, which is very important, which we hear not there in many various organizations. And I'm sure the places you have worked in have seen that, and I have valued you that way. So thank you, Bhavya. Thank you for this. So thank you everybody for joining us in this, and please keep an eye on this space and our YouTube channel for all the insights our business leaders are sharing with us. Thank you.